I'm just going to show you one more scale that's going to be really important for you, and then we can take a couple more questions before we leave. So if you can go to your last diagram, and it's the offensive scale, or I'm so offended scale. You can do it either way you want. Okay, so I'll show you how it works. And you know what, yesterday we actually applied it for, which was interesting, for concerns of racism, for concerns of sexism, for concerns of bullying, for being scared or feeling uncomfortable. You can change the word offended to any term you want, because this is all about people's perceptions in the workplace and how I cope with the number of different perceptions that are going on in any one of my reviews. So here you have being offended. I only say that because that's commonly a term used: humiliation, intimidation, aggression. Those are all terms that are often used in bullying and harassment policies as well. So in any workplace, you're going to have people that fall on the scale of sensitivity and perception of wrongdoing based on where they're at, their personalities, all sorts of different things, their cultural background, whether they were a small town person or grew up in New York City. You're going to have different levels of tolerance. So on the one hand, you have people who are never offended. And on the other hand, you have people who are born offended. Now, we know people on both sides of this. So the never offended people, truly, maybe they were born and raised in New York City, nothing bothers them. Their skin is thick, 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 and they truly totally can joke around. Nothing you say about them will affect them, and nothing you say in the workplace they will ever find offensive, even when they should. Like, I want to say to them, hey, it's 2014, you should be a little offended. Everybody's just calling you really ugly. Did you hear them? They're all saying that you're really ugly. And he's like, I know, but I'm really ugly, right? Like, they just do not, I in fact, some of them are my friends, and I keep trying to make them cry. Like, is there something I can say to have you completely implode? But they don't seem to get there. And not that I want people to suddenly be born offended, because that's a whole other problem, but where what you have over at this end of the sensitivity scale is we have, well, at every end, wherever we're at, we assume everybody else is at the same place in their lives. So if I'm not offended by something, like, why are you offended by it? And you might need some EFAP or some therapy or go get some meds, because there's nothing offensive. Like, your perception is off. Like, we just can't believe it, because our perception must be the right one, right? We're so entrenched in it. So the problem with this is they will give it as much as they get it, but often they will deliver that message to people who aren't at 1 on the sensitivity scale. They're somewhere over here, and then they find themselves in trouble. And they didn't intend it. They're not mean. They're not trying to hurt people's feelings, but they're okay with it, so why isn't everybody else? So that's the one extreme. The other extreme are people that just don't even like the fact that you exist, right? Like, it's just, why can't I just work in a place without people, right? And I think I probably sometimes by the end of the week, I'm probably over here, because I get aggravated when they sit people beside us at the restaurant. And my family's like, but they're allowed. There's a table there. I said, I'm done with people. I'm done. I've had a whole week of people. I want energy with no people there. So I'm probably there, because we can shift around based on our own days and where we're at. So here, these people often don't want joking around. They can be very, very serious, and they will make themselves the story of everything. So they are hurt by everything, and they're offended by everything, and they really are. So here's the thing: the people at 1 aren't lying, and the people at 10 aren't lying. It's where they're at. The law doesn't decide cases of harassment and bullying and dysfunction based on where people are at. They use a communal standard. So there's one standard that applies to the behavior of everybody in every workplace throughout British Columbia, and that's the reasonable person standard. And while this person thinks they're reasonable, and this person thinks they're reasonable. It's actually a construct that's created by law that is based on what would the average employee in 2014 think about what went on in that lunchroom or in the parking lot or in the open air cubicle offices. So it's essentially taking all of the law that I just talked to you about today, all the cases, all the legislation, and that's the legal side, combining it with what the people outside of Camosun would generally view a situation. So it's talking to the hypothetical community person to say, hey, this is just what went on in a staff meeting or in a faculty meeting. This is what happened. This person said this. So it's not labels, it's behaviors. This is what this person said. This is how the person said it. And this is who was there at the time. And this is how the other person looked when it was finished. So now I'm going to tell you the whole story. Do you think that that behavior would be acceptable in 2014 in British Columbia? And you don't just talk to one person, it's about essentially notionally talking to 100 and then getting a sense of what the communal expectations are for behavior. So it changes over time, just like smoking in public places has changed over time, smoking in offices, smoking in workplaces. You don't look back to see what happened in 1970 to figure out what the reasonable person would think. You consider it according to the 2014 standard. And that's going to be different than 2004, and that's going to be different from 1974. So for individuals to say, that's the way we've always done it around here, they're not understanding the fact that the reasonable person standard shifts over time, and that although somebody would never have been held accountable for their behavior 10 years ago for what they're doing, it's a new day in 2014, and that's what we have to deal with. It's what's going on today.